What's good, y'all? We back on Planet Rell, and today I present to you the final chapter of the first arc of the Immortal Thor. Let's get into it. So we start here with a perfect spear, with the dark side of the moon, Toros' wheel in the middle, and I don't know what planet that is on the right, but hey, it's there. We also have a dialogue from the narrator. There is light on the dark side of the moon, where Toros, the elder god, is fighting against Gaia's son, Thor, and those who stand with him. And the elder god has the wheel of fate in his hand, and the wheel turns, and it keeps turning, and it's always ready to turn. Now the question is brought up, understand ye yet, or what? And y'all know we've seen that question before. Now the narrator continues by saying all weather turns to storm, and this has happened before, and it will happen again. The hands on a clock are going to turn, the wheel is going to turn, and now the page is turning. Now when I read this and saw this 2-page spread, I instantly thought of this panel right here. And these are the elder gods of the Marvel Universe. But now let's get back to what we saw. We saw the face of a demiurge, and the narrator says that there were demiurges before, and they existed within realities that were alive that are now not alive. But there is a demiurge to come. But this specific demiurge was a pre-mortal and created gods. The demiurge's name and knowledge is not known to those who existed within primal time when the earth was in formation. And the narrator says that the demiurge's eyes burned with great will. This demiurge looked upon creation and saw a lot of things that could be done and brought forth aspects of itself. It brought forth gods. One god that is of deep magic, one god that is the wheel in the cycle, and another god that is of life. And the narrator says that there are many more living concepts in the earliest of their kind, and they existed before humanity could name or shape them. Now these gods were the first to look upon the world as it was being formed, and as they saw the world being formed, they saw each other. And they also knew each other as the first gods, the first siblings, and the first enemies. And the narrator says, how can a trick master exist alongside an iron fate? One must be ruled by another. And from that battle came a war. I'm gonna pause right here and say I like how Al Ewing had Utgard Loki and Toros be born at the beginning to be elder gods. Like he added to Marvel lore but made it really good, and it fits so well, like it makes sense. Now I don't know if y'all noticed this or not, but when I put 2 and 2 together, I was like shocked. The demiurge is Thor's grandfather, and Toros and Utgard Loki are Thor's uncles. Like really sit here and think about it. Cause it says the elder gods are siblings. And to make a connection here, like I gotta do this for y'all. Back during episode 1, Utgard Loki called Toros him and Gaia's brother. Then he calls Gaia his sister. Alright, now back to the war that was going on. And you see Gaia standing there in the middle of all of that chaos. And the demiurge is just watching this fight that's every man for himself. And these elder gods fought for thousands of years, repeating a cycle and starting at their beginning every time. But Gaia was the only one that saw past their stagnation. The earth or life within it would not survive this constant fighting, and that predicament wouldn't change unless she created a new cycle. And the narrator says a wheel that turned yet, with each turn made new. And Gaia began her plan. And the narrator says, beware of what you plan. Then we see Thor in the Thor Corps fighting Toros. Now I forgot to mention this back during episode 4. The Thor Corps has happened before. Twice actually. Now back to this right here. Now the narrator tells us that Thor doesn't know it yet, but he sees the fruit of his mother's labor. And if you don't know or remember what she did, she locked up Toros a millennia ago. And now she set him free. For what reason? I don't know. But back to the narrator. The narrator said that Toros was also a god of thunder who has been loosed upon Thor and Midgard. And Thor got his team together in his name to fight back. Now the narrator says that Gaia felt her wheel turning from winter to spring. And we see Jane Foster throw Mjolnir to Loki. And when Loki catches it, they say it's only 60 seconds of Thor time without touching the hammer. Now Loki throws it to Storm, and the hammer goes from spring to summer. Now as soon as she catches it, she throws it away, and she says, let's give it to somebody who wants it. And she gives it to Better A Bill. And now the hammer goes from summer to autumn. Now I ain't gonna lie, bruh, Al Ewing is cooking on here because I don't know if y'all peeped it. He was saying that Gaia's wheel has been turning from winter to spring, spring to summer, and summer to autumn. And that was shown as each character threw the hammer to somebody else, the seasons will change. And within each turn, it will build on the work of the previous turn. Now Beta Ray Bill throws it back to Jane. And Mjolnir passed by Toros, and he reached for it. And again, he was denied. Then Jane catches the hammer, and she asks Mr. Horse does he want to turn. And he like, nah, I got 4 hooves, that's good enough. Then Toros throws his wheel, and he said death will claim them all. But Jane like, that's cap, that ain't finna happen. Your wheel finna get a puncture. And she throws Mjolnir, and it cracks the wheel. And the narrator says it was an ill omen for Toros. I know he was salty, but I'm sitting here like, now we see my boy Thor holding up Tormod, and since Mjolnir cracked the wheel, Thor tells Toros that is the power of Mjolnir, and Mjolnir is the greatest of all hammers. Its Uru is stronger than ever before, and it's also eager to sever the skull of a titan. Now the narrator says that those words are true, but Thor was withholding a final truth. And the final truth is that Toros has yet to taste Mjolnir's greatest power. But here's the kicker, he can feel it very close, and his desire for it grew. And now we see Loki holding Mjolnir, and Loki says it's been a long time since they've held Mjolnir on a fully legitimate basis, and that they've missed it. Now Loki says that magic, mischief, trickery, and storytelling are fun, but there is something about throwing a big hammer at a thunder god's face. And we see Beta Ray Bill like, wait, no, don't do that. But Loki threw it anyway. Now Toros, the elder god, catches Mjolnir. And when I read this, bruh, and I saw it, I'm like,
what the fuck is up with this shit here?
Like when this happened, bro, I'm just sitting here like, there's no way this happened, bro. Like I was shocked. And I'm just sitting here thinking like, how is they finna defeat Toros? Now we see the Thor core just staring up at Toros. And he says the hammer is his now, and that time runs, and within moments, you will lose the power of Thor. And against him, they will be helpless. Then we see Thor's power fading away from Storm and Beta Ray Bill. And Storm says the 60 seconds are up and that she can feel the Asgardian strength leaving her. But she still has her power over the weather. And she starts to think that it's just now going to be her and Thor against him. But y'all just wait to see what happens. And Bill is like, I don't understand this. How can our enemy Toros even lift the hammer? Then Thor tells him that the reason is simple. He deems Toros worthy of the power of Thor. And I will say again, for those who don't know or just don't remember, Thor chooses who is worthy of Mjolnir now. And now since Thor deemed Toros worthy of Mjolnir and having the power of Thor, we now see Toros wielding Mjolnir with the power of Thor. Then Toros goes to tell the Thor core that nothing is beyond him now, and that the ancient storm meets with the new, and the past and future are one within him. And he says that he's going to turn them all into dust and bones, and that everything will end in a sea of fire and blood. And I don't know if y'all peeped it, but Toros' wheel of fate turned into a shield. So now Jane calls out to Thor, but Loki like, just give him a second. And Thor says to Toros, like, I know you got a goal, and before you do that, I got a question for you. Answer it if you can. Then Thor asks Toros, what is the power of Thor? And by the way Toros looking after that question, he like, Huh? Now Toros is like, what is happening to me? What have you done? And Thor tells Toros, when people called me in ancient times, rain lashed and lightning struck. As roofs were falling in and boats being capsized, what power did they invoke? Did those people want the storm to rage on even worse than the last moment? And Thor says no, and he tells Toros that the power of Thor is the power to hold the storm back, and that his greatest power and strength took him the longest to learn, and that great power and great strength is knowledge and how to use it well, with compassion, restraint, nobility, and hard-won wisdom. But most of all, being humble. Then he says the power of Thor is to be worthy, and that's another very good double entendre. But if Thor can grant the power and see no rule against it, then Toros deserves it more than anybody. because Thor sees that he needs it greatly. But now Toros starts tripping. Then he throws Mjolnir back at Thor, and he does this because Thor made him gain a conscience. And then you look back to earlier in the issue, you see the Elder Gods were just like mindless beasts, just fighting each other just constantly. Now Thor catches Mjolnir, and he says what is seen cannot be unseen. The heart is now open and cannot be simply closed. And he asks Toros, the god of ancient thunders, how does his heart feel? And this man Toros is in pain. He says it burns and it screams. His heart shrieks and he curses Thor. Then Toros says to Thor, with this soul torture, may you wear a crown of all of my torments upon your head. And he says this because he was shown what he was loosed upon the earth to do. And those who commanded him, his brother, the magic maker, Utgard Loki, and the one who sealed him away, Thor's mother, Gaia. And y'all can see the shock on Thor's face from when he hears that from Toros. And the narrator says that somewhere Gaia felt the cold of a winter as Thor learned this truth. And those words echoed louder than any type of thunder in Thor's ears, and he roared back at Toros with an equal force in his rage like a storm. And we see Thor yelling like, what you mean, bro? Like, tell me, Toros, like, what you mean by this? Like, I know I would be acting the same way as Thor if somebody told me that my mom sealed them away and then unsealed them and had them do something against me. Now Storm calmed down Thor because he was so angry, but we see an empty sky and Thor's plan worked. And Thor's plan was to make him want Mjolnir, then give him Mjolnir, then infect him with Mjolnir. And Storm says that gave Toros the agony of conscience. Then she asks Thor did he really truly need her to play along with his trick against Toros. And Thor tells her that he needed people who knew Mjolnir the best. And those people will wield Mjolnir perfectly and instinctively. And if those heroes showed character and example of what Mjolnir really is to be worthy, then that will make everything better. Now he tells Storm that his war is over with, and if she needs help, he will come to Araco and help her fight. And she tells him that it will be taken as an insult by both sides of the war, and that Thor might lose the fight that Storm wants to win. But the gift she will take is a ride home, because it'll save her the long journey. And Thor asks her, is there anything else you need? And she tells him to keep Orcus on his enemy list. Then she also tells him that she wants to make a heroic entrance to rally her troops, and that she does miss wearing a cape. And Thor gives her his cape. Now as he sends her back to Araco, he says he owes Storm a debt, and it's a debt that he's going to repay in greater measure. And that goes for Beta Ray Bill as well. Now Thor tells Bill that he was the truest of friends to him, and that it really pains him that he was not the best friend to Bill. Then Bill tells Thor that those were dark days and they left deep wounds, but they now have begun the work of healing what was broken, and that lifts Beta Ray Bill's heart. And as he's about to leave, he says next time Thor can do the honors of carrying the Twilight Sword into battle. And Thor tells his friend that the honor would be his. And the Twilight Sword is basically a replacement weapon for Stormbreaker. And just like Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, you had to be worthy to wield this sword. And Beta Ray Bill had to fight Surtur to claim it. And I ain't gonna cap, bruh, this was my favorite part of the issue because I've been waiting on this to happen. But after what happened during Kate's run and Daniel Warren Johnson's miniseries about Beta Ray Bill, I was wondering and waiting for the day they would become friends again. But I knew Thor would have to apologize for everything that he did. Now let's get back to the story. Beta Ray Bill did say those were dark days that he had in the past, and Thor is now saying he fears that the dark days have not ended. And after I read that specific line, I'm like, yeah, something crazy finna happen with Thor, like, something finna go down. Now Jane pulled Thor to the side to talk to him about what happened in Valhalla, and Odin did warn her about warning Thor about what's to happen. And she says there have been omens, nightmares in heaven, and fates that are dark linked to Mjolnir. And she says a warrior holding Mjolnir will meet their end soon. And Scourge was the one that had that dream. He had a dream of Thor holding Mjolnir and the hammer y'all know now as Tormod, and with Megingjord, the belt of strength, facing his bloody end. And that also made me think about the end of the Immortal Thor prologue where we saw this panel right here. This all just makes me eager to know what's going to happen with Thor. Now, since Jane said that a warrior holding Mjolnir will meet their end soon, Thor says he won't let it out of his hand again. The whole time, she's talking about him. And I know y'all probably wondering what that purple thing above Thor's head is. And when I saw it, I instantly thought of this story right here. In issue 1 of this story, Jane saw somebody that was about to die. Then she saw a lot of people that were in danger of losing their lives. And she saw those many people in danger because it was this bomb disguised as an actual human. But now let's get back to this. The narrator says that Jane saw the danger above Thor's head. It was only danger, not Thor's death. Not yet. And when I read the part that said not yet, I'm like, yeah, this word immortal is finna get put to use. Now Thor is saying that he's salty about his father interfering in his life and that he chose Jane to be his agent. But Jane like, nah, he didn't. Odin found a way to free somebody from Valhalla to do his dirty work for him. And that person is Scourge, the executioner. And he got free from Valhalla with the help of Odin by like faking his death. And there was a back door that only Odin knew about so that Scourge could leave. But now let's get back to where we was. Dario Agger says he loves Scourge's work, but Scourge like, bro, I'm not here because I want to be here. He says that his friend tells him that Dario Agger is the keeper of Thor's legend in this world, and that might be useful to Scourge and his friend. And Dario Agger says he has made some acquisitions, but they're not public knowledge yet. And Scourge like, yeah, whatever, bruh. There's knowledge beyond knowledge. He had a vision while he was dead, and he saw Thor saving the world from disaster. And Scourge and his friend think they have a mutual interest in stopping Thor from saving the world. And Dario Agger says disaster is where the money is, and that is true, and that he thinks that they can do business with each other. Then he meets Scourge's friend, Enchantress. Now this concludes the first arc of the Immortal Thor. Man, y'all, I'm eager to know what's going to happen in the future of this story. I cannot wait. But let me know y'all thoughts or theories if y'all have them in the comments. Like and subscribe. I'll catch y'all on the next one. God bless. I'm out.